So the next concept that I want to discuss is the velocity ratio of a simple machine. The velocity ratio of a simple machine can be calculated in this manner. So you take a simple machine like a lever, a first class lever as it happens to be, and you apply an effort at the effort arm, and you get a load output at the load end, and in doing so you move the effort arm by a certain distance dE, and at the same time there is a certain distance that the load arm also moves. I'm using dE instead of SE and DL instead of SL interchangeably. I had used S because that is the symbol that that we normally use for displacement, but today I'm going with the distance that is moved. There is no particular reason why, except that in the textbook it is mentioned as dE, so I don't want it to be confusing because you will have to refer to the textbook at some point of time. So the critical point over here is, therefore the velocity of the effort arm moved, the velocity with which the effort arm moves and the velocity with which the load arm moves can therefore be calculated. And the critical fact over here is that both these movements occur in the same time interval. Okay, so therefore if I want to know the, let me put it like this to begin with, that if I want to find out the ratio of the velocity of the load arm divided by the velocity of the effort arm. Okay, so then what happens is, distance moved by the load arm by t, distance moved by the effort arm divided by t. So so then this is not relevant anymore, I'll get rid of that. So the velocity between the load arm and the velocity of the effort arm, the ratio can then be dl by t times t by dE, right? Because that is divided by this. I can put the division sign, and then you know that when you convert it into the multiplication, you will have to do the reciprocal of that. I hope you know the mathematical reason why you do that and not just use it as an algorithmic thing. But since these two time intervals are exactly the same, therefore t divided by t will become 1. It's a good idea to always write that down, and therefore now you get the final velocity ratio, that is VL by VE, which can be abbreviated as VR because it's the ratio of the velocities between the two, and that is the distance moved by the lever arm divided by the distance moved by the effort arm. Okay, so now again, just as in the case of mechanical advantage can be greater than 1, mechanical advantage can be equal to 1, and mechanical advantage can also be lesser than 1. There is something in terms of the advantage that the machine brings to you when that happens. So naturally the same thing occurs over here also. The velocity ratio of a machine can be greater than 1, the velocity ratio can be equal to 1, and also less than 1. What does it mean when that happens? So can somebody tell me what happens when the what happens, or what are the conditions when velocity ratio is equal to 1? How do you interpret that?
The fulcrum is at the center.
Yeah, so the interpretation is that the fulcrum is right at the center. So you can think in terms of, again, the seesaw example. That is, if you have a seesaw with two persons sitting with equal weight at either end, then the velocity ratio will be equal to 1 if the fulcrum is at the center and effort and load are the same. So whatever distance the effort arm moves, the same distance the load arm will also move at the same time. So therefore there is no velocity advantage at all. What about if the velocity ratio is greater than 1? How do you interpret that?
Any normal one, like lifting a rock using it.
Uh,
The one you've given above. The example you've given above, in which the distance is greater for DA.
Yeah, so no, so in this case, you are not, this velocity ratio is not greater than 1 in this case, because
Yeah, it's a machine that
dl is not
It-
greater than de.
diminishes the force. It diminishes the force, the machine.
It diminishes the force. Yes, if the velocity ratio is greater than 1, then what is going to happen is that you are applying a larger effort to get a smaller load. And you may ask, well, why do you do something like that? Well, you do something like that because you want to increase the velocity at the load end. So one example, I just remembered one sort of cartoonish example is this one. And what do I put at this end? Something. Something wicked. No?
Raw.
Child.
I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, something like a Tom and Jerry kind of situation. So what will happen over here is that the effort, hey, am I getting this wrong? It should be the other way around, no? I got it. So that's not the correct one. And maybe we can just put a rock. So what will happen over there?
The rock cannot go so high.
Yeah. So when presumably this person lands on this end, what will happen is the lever will move like that, right? So you land like that and the lever goes up, and what will happen to the rock is that it's going to get accelerated in that direction. So in this case, you can see that the distance moved by the effort is lesser than the distance moved by the load. Okay, so therefore what will happen is dl by de is going to be greater than 1, and if it is greater than 1, then the object is going to get accelerated upwards because of the larger force that is being because of the force that is being applied at that. You are applying a less force, but you are applying it for a greater distance. So therefore you are going to get a catapult effect. That is the basic principle of a catapult. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions about it? We don't have a lot of great examples for this particular thing, that the velocity ratio becomes greater than 1. The good example in terms of simple machine for this happening is of course the gear systems. So when you have gear sprockets on a bicycle, then you do have a situation, the ordinary gear ratio in a bicycle, then you do have a situation in which you apply a slightly greater effort than walking, let's say, on the pedals of a bicycle, but what you get out as a result is the higher velocity. So you can always go faster on a bicycle than when you walk, and the reason is because you're applying a larger effort but you're getting a greater speed. But then we don't have gears anymore in our syllabus, so we can't use that example. This is the best that I can do at the moment. And of course, if the velocity ratio is lesser than 1, then these examples, most simple machines come with that. You can also see that the velocity ratio and the mechanical advantage are kind of complementary to one another. Okay, wherever there is a mechanical advantage, there the velocity ratio will be less than 1. When the mechanical advantage and the velocity ratio are both equal to 1, then you just have a change in direction. You have the seesaw situation. But if the mechanical advantage becomes less than 1, then the velocity ratio becomes greater than 1. So that complementary nature is there between velocity ratio and mechanical advantage. So any questions about velocity ratio at the moment?
So it's just the inverse, right, of mechanical advantage.
Yeah, it's the, yeah. You can get mechanical advantage from the velocity ratio, and vice versa also. You can calculate the mechanical advantage if you know the velocity ratio, and the other way around also can be done. The next concept that we are looking at, as the bell goes, is efficiency, abbreviated to this symbol. This symbol is eta. It's pronounced eta. Okay, and efficiency is basically how much of the input work is converted into output work in any given machine. So you calculate efficiency of a machine, eta, in terms of the ratio between the work output and the work input. Okay. Now, why is this important? This is important because most machines are not efficient enough to convert all of the work input into output. Why is that so? Well, that's because most machines involve some overcoming of friction. Okay, and friction is something that we do not require. We don't want our machines to have friction in general, and the overcoming of the friction is not part of the deal. Okay, so therefore the friction takes away part of the input energy into overcoming itself. Therefore we don't make complete utilization of the work input, and that is one of the simplest reasons why efficiency is not always equal to 1. In general, we can say that work input is always going to be greater than work output. So if the denominator is greater than the numerator, eta will always be less than 1. It can be pretty close to 1. Eta can be pretty close to approximately equal to 1 in very, very simple machines. Like again, if you take the example of a lever, you apply effort and load comes out over there. The only friction is friction that occurs between the fulcrum and the crowbar. So therefore that you can say is a very little amount of frictional loss that takes place. So you can say in these kinds of situation there is almost zero loss and efficiency can be pretty close to 1. But then of course the bar might, say for example, bend. If you have a very large force over here, you apply the force, some of it may cause the crowbar to bend when you're applying the force. If that happens, then obviously some amount of it is going to increase the potential energy of the elastic potential energy of the iron bar. So again, that goes as something that is wasteful, something that we do not require really. So are there any machines in which you can have the work input equal to the work output? No, this is almost impossible to create. There can be like biological systems, I am told, in which there is a possibility of getting very close to efficiency of 1, but even there it is not exactly equal to 1. Now efficiency in terms of eta is just a number. Okay, so you can get eta less than 1 in most cases, or almost equal to 1. Eta can never be greater than 1. The law of conservation of energy forbids that from happening. However, eta less than 1 is not to be confused with the efficiency percentage. Okay, so if you want efficiency in terms of a percentage, then you have to multiply eta with 100. Okay, then you get an efficiency percentage, and efficiency is often represented as a percentage. How that is done we will see in the next class.